The opinions and attitudes expressed by us in our music and lyrics are not really those that. Let's do it over again. Okay, one more time. I'm actually having trouble reading this. Okay, here we go again. The opinions and attitude. Page 77. The opinions and attitudes expressed by us in this. I recommend that you not listen, and I wouldn't if you dare. At your own risk, so to speak.
It was just that. It was just this kid who was just like a kid and who just liked music and loved music, and then all of a sudden he became like a punk rock icon. It's just very unusual to think of. If I had known at the time or thought at the time, he's going to become a punk rock icon. He's going to influence millions of people, like change the way they think about hardcore music. I would never have thought it.
He must have just great life because he's up on stage. It was so fucking, magical when he was on stage. People think, that you're not a human. You're this entity or you're this person that they only see you for an hour on stage. They don't know what the fuck else is going on. They don't see the fucking grieving and fucking tears and the blood and fucking, bullshit.
Well, I've never met anyone like him, and there never will be anybody like him. Hopefully he'll last for a while.
Punk rock turning point in my life. I'm with my family eating supper, watching TV after school, and we're watching the news, and the Sex Pistols had just arrived in America. And I first heard the name Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten, and I liked what I saw.
The bands that had sort of had a little bit of juice from the 70s started to suck.
All that was left from the hippies was crap. There was no message, there was no politics. It was just, we want to be rock stars.
One generation burned out, and punks were going to do it in a different way with sharper fangs and without all the dumb bong hits and hanging plants and all.
And it was the exact same thing, except it was long hair and flared pants and love beats. It was no different, and they were all standing up for the same thing, more or less. Peace and no more wars and no more violence and this and that. But they weren't accepted then either.
It's not so much about fitting in as it is being a part of something. And that attracts people from all walks of life, right? It becomes a mentality rather than a show of fashion or of a trend.
Edmonton was similar to Victoria and Vancouver in the late 70s in that there wasn't really, there was a scene, but it didn't really have a name.
It was kind of like everyone that was in the scene practically was in a band, so there was still lots of bands, but it was just like little Edmonton,
There wasn't any club scene. There was like 2 or 3 places that you could maybe see bands, and a lot of sort of punk bands would play just in community halls, and someone would throw a show.
It was just like a free-for-all. Half the time, there wasn't a PA. It was like a light bulb hanging from the ceiling.
They were all actually playing in a band called the Live Sex Shows in 1981. The beginning of 1981.
And we'd have these great posters, and it said live sex shows, like all ages. And when we play fucking clubs, they go, "Is there a live sex show there tonight? I can't have my 13-year-old kid going to see a live sex show. Well, I was always into music anyways, because it was an escape. And I come from a kind of troubled, broken home background, right?
A lot of us that were punks in the late 70s, like, we came from bad homes, shall we say. You know, a lot of us were abused. And we raised ourselves, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
When were you born? October 19, 1962. Like, I'm the 11th of 12. There's 6 boys and 6 girls, and I'm the second youngest. I'm like a risk taker, and that's been everything. Music, skateboarding, blah, 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 you know, with sex and, you know, always taking risks. My first recollection of actually being alive was when I was about 7, 8, or 9, and I was in this garage with these kids, and we were sniffing model glue. I lived with my father and his mother, my grandmother. I remember when I was about 8 years old, my father was gone, and all of a sudden my mother had reappeared into the picture. And then I found out later that my father had got sent to prison. Dude has spent, holy fuck, okay, 78. He spent easily a third of his life in jail. So he's used to that. It was more of a transition period. It was kind of tough because then she married another guy, and then there was the step stranger in the house, right? And that was kind of hard to deal with because I'm my brother and I were, especially me, quite rebellious. In the summertime, we'd get out of the house as much as possible. We'd be out on our skateboards. We wouldn't come home until it was dark. The Belkey brothers, Mark and Brent, I knew them for years because we were skateboarders. There'd be a couple like indoor skate parks that opened. We'd find ourselves at the same park, and you know, we'd carouse and talk and blah blah blah, and we'd always be there skating, right? Something, good or bad, 110%. When my mother met my stepfather, and they were both drinkers, I mean, he'd work hard like from Monday to Friday, but on the weekends, they'd just get fucking wasted. And my mom, turned out my mom the whole time had an allergic reaction to alcohol, and she'd just go fucking crazy. And she became a very different person than the loving, caring mother that I knew during the daytime. And it's serious sometimes on the weekend. It's very fucking disturbing, frightening, and yeah, just fucking scary. Painful. Very painful.
Guy's been through a lot, man. And it's, that'll take a toll on anybody.
Something happened. There was a voice in my head.
The thinking is that usually there's some kind of pre-schizophrenic potential that's there. As I say, I liken it to being a little bit like having a fault line under your house. You don't know it's there until there's an earthquake, and then you're really sure it's there.
A voice. But it's my voice. It's not somebody else's. And there was actually one kind of on the other, saying, can't do this, can't do that. It was like the fucking angel and the devil, but I could hear them in my head. And life changed at that point. Because I did not know it was. It scared the fucking shit out of me, man. Like, I was like, does everybody have this? But it's something you didn't talk about. But it was always there, man.
it's a big step to admit that, you know, you need medical help in that way. And there's such a stigma attached to it.
You know, the problem with going on diagnosis, you've got somebody who really has kind of lost control of their life. I mean, they just don't have the resources in these states to manage their everyday living patterns.
And then subsequently, a lot of people that are in that position turn to other forms of self-medicating themselves, you know. They get into drugs, they drink, you know.
Your true self is saying, you know, be a good boy, and the other party is saying, why? Why be a good boy? Come on, come over to the dark side.
Sometimes I listen to the good, and sometimes I listen to the bad, or I'd have to fight the bad, because I always want to listen to the good side. But it was there, and it's not as loud as it used to be, but it got really loud there for a long time. Yeah, but there was good things that came out of it. The good side would give me words and ideas and, you know, images to draw and words to write songs with, you know. Spent a lot of time in my room, which I shared with my brother, and we just listened to records and fantasized about being somewhere else. And I knew, as soon as I saw the fucking Sex Pistols on the news, John Lydon / Johnny Rotten, that I was gonna have a punk rock name and be a character.
There's two people. There's Ken Chin and then there's Chai Pig. Like, for you to get to know Ken Chin, and that's where you would get to know him as a person, his past, his thoughts, his feelings, his ideas, the things that mean stuff to him. Chai Pig is the freak show. That's the guy that people come out to see. You know what I mean? The guy in the shiny gold and silver pinstripe suit. You know what I mean?
To me, SNFU is just an offshoot of the well-known black sex shows.
We got a bit more progressive and serious about it, and found Evan, who's a great drummer.
These guys could not play all that well. Mark was a shitty guitar player. Brent was a fucking horrible guitar player. Kenny couldn't sing a note worth of fuck. Warren never touched a bass before.
The bass player was the fucking Sid Vicious of Alberta, couldn't play a fucking note. But he had a van and a regular job, and he bought the practice PA, so he could stay in the band, right?
But he couldn't play a note. And he played a few shows with us, I think, in '81. I think he left the band in '82. And then we got Jimmy Schmidt. And it was Jimmy, Mark, Brent, Kenny, and me. And that makes a fucking fist. That was the beginning.
And in the case of Edmonton, the first band that breaks through of all bands is not some hollow copy of DOA or the Sex Pistols or Black Flag or Personality Crisis. It was SNFU who had honed a completely unique thing in a vacuum.
There was this sense of urgency and anger, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before.
Hey man, are you guys SNFU?
Very much so.
All of a sudden, it's like, who are these guys? Like, these guys are unbelievable. Like, this is an unbelievable band. Like, not just an unbelievable punk band, but just a band. Like, better than any other kind of band that was playing in Edmonton. Rock band or folk band or any kind of band. SNFU was way better than everybody.
I think SNFU were kind of what broke it open for Edmonton. And what was important at that point was you needed a local band to break it open so people like Black Flag and DOA and ourselves could actually come play in that town. You know, you find out who the bands are, find out who they work with if they don't put the shows on themselves, and you network that way. Otherwise, there's no shows because the older musicians hated you, the city fathers hated you, the club owners hated you, and the cops hated you. So people take it for granted now that there was always a punk scene, an alternative scene, and indie scene, but it had to be built from scratch with drawn swords.
Well, we toured. Youth Brigade toured. We did a tour in 1982 with Social Distortion. We got a big school bus, and actually that became a movie called Another State of Mind.
They did that movie, Another State of Mind, right? And I met them on that tour, which is like 1981, 82, right? We kept corresponding with them, right? And they did that tour, and then they vowed that they love Canada so much because they're Canadians that they'd come back and do a Canadian tour, which they did.
We came back in '83 and made friends with all these bands, and then we put this our second compilation record together, Something to Believe in.
They picked like 6 or 7 bands, like 3 from out east and 3 from the prairies.
We had a ton of Canadian bands, including SNFU, and that's how we sort of introduced them to the world.
They got a lot of fan mail, a lot of positive feedback from our song, which is called Victims of a Womanizer.
Hearing that, we put Womanizer on the compilation, and then we said, yeah, let's do a record. We loved the band. We saw them live. They were great. We heard their music. We loved them. So we put And No One Else Wanted to Play out, would have been 1984.
And we did that fucking record in 8 fucking days. Yeah. And mixed it in fucking 1 day. We drove all the way down to Los Angeles, fucking slept on their floor, slept in the warehouse office.
We recorded in the same studio as the Beach Boys. It was at a place called Track Records. And I'm looking at this big lot across the street. I said, what's that? And they said, that's Paramount Studios, Jones. And I'm like, no way, man. I've seen a lot of movies from there, man. It was like, it's really, you can't comprehend it. You can't I just can't comprehend that stuff.
We actually recorded only 8 days, but we did like 6 gigs in the meantime, right? It's fucking great.
Phoenix, Tucson, San Diego, Orange County, LA, you know. But yeah, it was some really a positive time doing the recording of the first major album under our belt and doing the mix, in between the mixing and everything. We played a few shows, and it was wonderful, you know.
When we put out the first record, and we used Diane Arbus's photograph, the actual photograph, and my attitude was, you know, well, she's dead, so how is she gonna know anyway? There's a Diane Arbus estate, right? And they caught wind of the cover, and you know, filed a cease and desist order.
The Diane Arbus estate was like, put the kibosh on that.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is, I think they had to completely they had to destroy all the jackets, but they still kept the records. So for, I think, a rush, because they were on tour, they had this jacket made up.
I never thought that would happen, because who's gonna fucking know a shitty little band from fucking Edmonton that just put out a record with the you know, the limited pressing of 2,000 copies? No one outside of Edmonton is gonna hear this shit anyway, right? But lo and behold,
I don't even collect vinyl records, but I have a copy of that vinyl record to this day because it is the quintessential soundtrack of my life.
Everything on the first record, like when I listen, I can still throw on And No One Else Wanted to Play, and it's just like start to finish, I sing every single word.
I still have it, hopefully on vinyl somewhere, but definitely still on cassette in my collection. Great album.
Yeah, the first record was great, so they just pushed it, right? It was a great album. Yeah, fucking amazing fucking punk rock album, right?
and we did a tour in '85 for it, and we went all around the States. And people were anticipating us, and we really connected with the skateboard scene.
You know, I
first memory of Chai was not much of a memory. He was covered in beer cans in some hotel in Tucson or Phoenix, and he just got drunk and passed out, and we just covered him in beer cans. And on that same tour where I met him on Asexuals, they went down the West Coast, we went down the East Coast, we hooked up in the center, and then we hooked up back in Toronto and Montreal and played with him on that tour in Toronto and Montreal. And he stayed at my house in Montreal and passed out again, you know. The guy just drank and passed out. That's what he did back then.
We'd play Montreal and Toronto and all the places, and they were waiting for us because they knew this is about a year and a half after the record came out, and people started listening to it out east and heard a lot about how ugly I am and my reputation as being the fucking hunchback of fucking punk rock, and so they were mystified and they wanted to see us play. And when we got there, like every show was fucking sold out and it was fucking exciting. The deal was, you do one record and if it does all right, you're obligated to do a second record. And so that's what happened. We did 2 records.
I got a call from, it was Ken, and say, hey, SNFU just lost rhythm section. What do you say? So I said yes.
Did the first album, took a lot of acid, and disappeared. I built that mountain, I built that name, and I jumped.
Tadpole Jones had left, and I was the second official drummer of SNFU. So
they embraced a lot of different stuff on the second record, but I mean, that's inevitable when you're a band. You can keep putting the same fucking record out. You're gonna get bored.
When we wrote this record, Belky Boys had some songs, either Mark or Brent, come in, and he's going, hey, I got some lyrics that'll fit with that. So it's not like they get together. He's got a bunch of lyrics written, or he hears the song, goes, yes, I got something that'll fit with that. And it's amazing because sometimes the music and the lyrics it connected really well.
Go to practice and they'd have music and I'd just throw 3 books down on the ground and kind of scan them and feel them out, and I could go, those syllables and phrases mixed with this rhythm, and then I just match them, and that'd be it.
Looking back on this, the lyrics of the record are pretty interesting. Ken wrote all the lyrics at that point, and I'm thinking that he's kind of bitter at sometimes.
He's an angry dude. He was an angry dude that was a little more, Ken could never be Zen, but you know what I mean? He was a little more mellow. So, and that's how he got it out, just by writing songs.
I like a lot of music that's about different things. It's about personal things, or about having fun, or just about personal stuff, you know, that's not necessarily overtly political.
I'm sort of the main lyric writer, even though I didn't want to be, but that's the way it came out. As for inspiration, I don't know, newspaper helps sometimes. I don't know, just things I dream up when I'm drunk. That's one of my major influences is alcohol, and I'm proud of it. And it's fun to be drunk sometimes.
In my mind, there's room for all kinds of diverse influences, and with Shai's lyrics and even his style and his outlook, you never knew where he was going to pull stuff from.
I mean, even within the humor, there's a cynical side to that. There was a political side to the cynicism.
Did a lot of those early SNFU songs, if you listen to them now, a lot of them deal with a lot of his issues of his family, his whole sexual thing, a lot of that. I mean, predominantly that.
In those days, we didn't sell much, you know. If we sold a couple thousand, that was a lot. Their records are probably somewhere around 40, 50,000 each.
When the album came out, they said, well, the logical thing to promote this is for you guys to go on a trip.
jumped in that van. We went 4 months straight. I think we had 2 or 3 different booking agents, and we did Detroit, I think 3 times on that tour. We'd be in Florida, and then Detroit 2 weeks later, then down in Nashville, and then back up in Detroit. And it was really total dartboard tour.
One day we'd play opening up for Corrosion of Conformity or something, or Fear to 3,000 people. Next day, playing to 20 people in Texas in a fucking submarine shop, you know? Like a sandwich shop, and you're like, this is fucking weird.
We'd print our shirts days off. We'd buy the black T-shirts, and we'd have the screen, and we'd just print shirts. We'd need a day off because the oil base would take 24 hours to dry.
I stopped drinking. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I stopped smoking dope. I just wanted to be the best I could be, right? And just concentrate on the shows.
He had stopped. It was totally different than when I had met them in the previous summer in '85, where he was drinking and smoking dope and stuff. Because he became a performer and really, really wanted to do justice. Kids were paying, $2 to $5 at the time to come see the band, and he wanted to put on a good show.
And they'd have probably 90 seconds of just kind of feedback and milling around on stage and letting the tension build or whatever. And Chai would pace around, wrapping the mic cord around his hand like he does, and he'd pace around and then he'd go, well, there's a fire at the end of the block, and the whole place would fucking erupt, right? It's just the coolest thing I'd ever seen at the time.
He kind of comes out and goes, this is how it's fucking going down. And everybody goes, fucking A.
They've always been the best live band, hands down.
I don't remember them having an off night, where they didn't put out 100%. That's just the way they did it.
In the 1980s, when you would see SNFU, like once the act had really crystallized as being something where there were costumes and props and a big mess involved, puffed weed all over the place, then you knew that it was going to be really over the top.
You didn't even have time to think about what the fuck you were seeing. It was just a punch in the fucking head, Like, you couldn't think about, oh, what is this? It was just like, wow, this is fucking awesome.
You see all the kids, especially if it's their first time, that just the jaws drop. And it's like that through the whole show.
It's just like a blur.
Pig took a whole bag of puffed wheat, fucking just threw it on everybody.
He was dressed as Katie Lang, and the rest of the group was dressed up as mummies.
Hit hot dogs into the crowd with tennis rackets,
Pulled out an inflatable whale or an orca.
He came out in his chicken suit.
Cover everyone with stuffed animal innards.
Fucking popcorn, popped wheat,
And then out comes an air mattress, inflated.
Goat head? I don't remember.
He had a big box of donuts and a tennis racket.
Jumps out on the air mattress into the crowd, and it's like his flying rubber carpet.
Hanging upside down by his knees from the rafters.
He chucked an octopus into the crowd. That thing stunk, and there were bits of it all over the place.
Confetti, holy fuck, confetti. That stuff is the worst. Once that gets wet into carpets and shit, you can't get it out.
You couldn't go to a more crazy show than an SNFU show.
We were out for 4 months, and we came home with almost $20,000, which at the time seemed like huge amounts. We're selling shirts for $5 a pop. So you got to sell a lot of shirts to make 20 grand, I got to fly home, and I had $1,000 in my pocket, which is great for 17 weeks of work, $1,000.
I was headbanging, and this fucking young kid hoisted himself up on the stage, and I cracked my head right into his. I cracked my skull at a gig. Yeah. You see the line on my forehead right here? Yeah. And after that, things got kind of dark. Life was fun up until then. Then life took a fucking weird turn, and I became. I lost control of myself. Like that was the dividing line of my mental well-being. we'd come back from Europe in like '88, and then we did some touring in '89, and we weren't writing that much, but I think just the wear and tear of like being together for so long, and there was a little bit of infighting, and the other guys decided that I was being a little bit of a control freak. I was the asshole, and so they kicked the asshole out of the band. I was mad. I was angry about it for a long period of time, and I fucking left town. So I moved out of Edmonton.
He seemed happier out here. I mean, like, SNFU had just broken up, which was a substantial blow. It had been the focus of his entire adult life up to that point.
And I just wanted to fucking start afresh and new and be around new people. So just kind of to be in a different environment was good for my creativity.
He was kind of left with, what am I going to do now? And of course, bubbling with creativity and all sorts of ideas, but not having a ready outlet for it, I think was hard for him for a little while.
When I moved to Vancouver, I just said I'm not going to drink anymore. And that lasted for 16 years.
You know, he's going in a real small place. When he moved to Vancouver, he definitely seemed to kind of come out a lot more in every way.
There was a lot of gossip. Like, he moved to Vancouver, and when he moved to Vancouver, he was suddenly gay. It's like, dude, I was gay before I even knew where Vancouver was. Hello? I just didn't talk about it. And that's, the drinking blocked that out for me. And that's why I wanted to get clarity.
The first time that I kind of found out about it, and the next time I saw him, he was really like kind of in my face about it. He was like, so, did you hear I'm a homo? Just super like, here I am, and I was just like, hey, cool, that's cool, Ken, like.
Well, there's a tendency for a lot of people to lean towards street drugs in Vancouver. I mean, Vancouver is notorious for being a drug town and having a huge drug problem. But that sort of draw to the street scene and the draw to drugs is not particular to people with mental disorders. However, if somebody's got these kind of mental disorders, it makes it really hard for them to continue on with their lives.
I didn't see meth until I came to Vancouver, right? And, met some people that were doing it on a regular basis and selling it and stuff, and sometimes just like put it in some water and drink it. But it was really big on the gay scene, and that's how I discovered it. Called it jib. Yeah, and that was the first time I actually smoked it. It felt kind of warm and kind of, if you didn't overdo it, you felt nice and kind of serene and kind of sexual, and as sexual as you could possibly be if you're a fucking gay troll in some fucking bathhouse hiding in the dark, And it's cheap, like $5 worth. Keep you up for 3 fucking days. You'd be like, yeah.
Crystal meth appears to be just about the most addictive drug that's been invented so far. So people can become addicted very quickly, but it's going to be different if they're using once a week or once a day or 5 times a day. You're going to see a different kind of decline, right? But once it gets into a daily process, that's when everything starts falling apart.
I had no idea Shy had fallen into any kind of substance abuse until their old manager told me a couple of years ago, and I almost broke down and cried. It was so unexpected and so not the Shy I know. I never would have believed that. I mean, I don't know, maybe he had a beer or two or something when I knew him and when they came through and stayed with me or we played together, but I never saw any hint of addiction or substance abuse whatsoever.
There was one confusing period where he didn't sleep for a week. And I'd get these strange calls from at all hours of the day and night where he had, he had worked something out. He had discovered something. And I'd go over to his place and things having to do with time and space, which had occurred to him in this delirium that he managed to work himself into by not sleeping. This is not an exaggeration, for a week. And not all that much of what he was saying made a whole lot of sense. People were worried. I was worried. Eventually, he just became exhausted and he fell asleep while on the phone to a friend of his in Lawrence, Kansas, and slept for a day and a half solid, and emerged from the experience sort of going, well, that was neat. I think that I'll do it again someday. And my reply to that was, well, maybe you shouldn't.
Well, sleep deprivation is a fucking really damaging thing. And again, I think it's less to do with the effect of the drug sometimes and more to do with the effect of not sleeping for 4 days. Well, it's like, yeah, I don't care if you're artistic or your art is fucking digging a ditch, man. If you don't sleep for 4 days, something's suffering somewhere, you know?
And that seemed to go hand in hand with him not having a focus for his energy or for his ideas.
A couple people they had a band, and they didn't have a singer though. And they heard that I was thinking about moving to Vancouver, so I jammed with them a couple times. That was 1990. The Wongs only played from 90 to 91.
Chai Wang come along as the merchandiser for the last DOA trip down to California. We're doing one farewell tour. This is fall of 1990. We had about 12 shows on the West Coast. So Chai came along, and you know what? People would come up and go wow, DOA played pretty good. I'd like to buy a shirt. And you go, you don't want to buy a shirt. Those guys, they suck. Here, take a sticker for the Wongs, my new band, the Wongs. And if you push it, so sometimes we walk around the corner, we going, yeah, I'll forget about DOA, take a sticker from the Wongs. They're going to be the greatest thing ever, right? And we're just the problem was that Chai was just too little to beat up, right? Somebody else I would have beat up.
And I thought they had enormous potential. It was right when Jane's Addiction first got picked up and people were looking at Soundgarden.
It was a good band. Cara Beliveau on drums, Ralph Big Ass on bass, and I think Kevin Rose on guitar. He was a fine guitar player. So no, it was actually a really good band. I was specking that they were going to do more than they did, but
When that went south, he felt as though he had learned some things.
They signed a 2-record deal and they did better than Stick in the Eye. So they released the live record as the second one to make Cargo Records happy.
We had some leftover material in this live recording from that last show at the Polish Hall in '89. Came up and then we had all these B-sides and leftover material. And Randy Boyd from Cargo asked me if we'd like to put it out. And it was already recorded. All I did was mix it down, and he had a budget. And I was like, why not? I asked the other guys, they said yeah. When Cargo announced that the record was going to come out and started doing the preliminary advertising for it, the phone starts ringing. So does this mean SNFU is back together? Does this mean they're going to tour for the record? And Randy said, well, the phone's ringing off the hook and the fucking offers are really good.
I did the reunion tour as well, which was damn good. Damn, we sold a lot of merchandise. You guys hearing this?
Oh, dude.
You could shit in a box, put SNFU on it, and someone would buy it. Some kid would buy it. It was just it's out of control. So financially, it was great. It was probably one of the best paydays I've ever had punk rock-wise was SNFU reunion tour, and I had a really, really great time.
When SNFU did the reunion, the pit was the entire floor of the Rev, which is the same thing as the Bronx. I mean, it was massive.
And the tour went so well that they ended up getting back together.
Mark and Brent moved to Vancouver, right? So all of a sudden they were there again, right?
And so yeah, it was essentially at that point a Vancouver band.
I really thought it was a pretty bold move of Mr. Brett to branch out and bring in a band from Canada. I've never found a band that I like more from Canada than SNFU, so I thought they were an awesome addition to that label. Having that exposure of Epitaph Records, I just know that they rubbed off on a lot of other up-and-coming musicians.
To me, that was like the light at the end of the tunnel for all punk bands in the 90s was Epitaph.
So Brett had money all of a sudden and expanded his business, and so he signed all his favorite bands. He went crazy.
I think it was an exciting time for him, and then I think that it kind of ended up maybe going a little bad. I think a lot of bands started selling a lot more records, and SNFU maybe felt a little left behind, and then it kind of went bad. I never really knew the details other than I don't think it was I think they came away with it feeling like, what the fuck happened?
They never were really that kind of band. And I think, you got to be a little more ordinary in a certain way.
Epitaph, they made a play for the mainstream. They did that, did Offspring, and once they had big success with that, they tried to keep going in that direction. Sometimes they were less successful.
Radio's not ready for a band like SNFU. I don't think it ever will be. Like, radio is meant to satisfy a mass audience, and SNFU are not meant for a mass audience.
There's just certain aesthetics about them that mass consumers in the mass market wouldn't understand. Be too over their heads, I suppose.
We hadn't done a record in like 5 years, but we were experimenting as a band, and there was a little bit of everything on that record. And I remember Brett Gerwitz coming into the studio and saying, and listening to the shit and saying, "Where are the fast songs?" We waited fucking 2-3 months to have this fucking certain producer. 2 days into our fucking project, he fucking books himself into fucking rehab, and so we have no producer.
He went into rehab, so we ended up with the engineer of the studio, a guy named Joe Pecorello, who was referencing our mixes for the record to White Lion, which was a bit freaky if you're a punk rock band.
So it didn't turn out the best. She's gone now. She died at 66. I was 32 when that happened and had a nervous breakdown.
There's a stressor that comes along that jolts a person. Something really dramatic and traumatic happens to them, a loss of a job or a loss of a close one, something that's extremely upsetting. Most people will go through a period of grief and get over it, but some people are just so thrown off the rails that they literally can become psychotic as a result of the reaction to that stressor.
The question is the psychosis drug-induced, or is it caused by the mental illness? And sometimes those are overlapping because the person has both things going on.
People are coming over and you're not answering the door, you're too paranoid to go outside, you're not answering the phone, you're speaking in tongues, you're doing all kinds of fucking crazy shit.
At that time, I thought this was pretty much going to be the end of SNFU. He started making no sense at all about, he'd go, "Hey guys, you gotta come over, I got something on tape I want you to see." And he would, we'd go into his little basement suite in East Van, and he'd have a videotape of some late night talk show or something that he sat up, of course, all night and taped. And then he would point out little conspiracies or, "This is all about us." He was making no sense at all. It was really like Chai has gone off the deep end. He's not making any sense. We couldn't really talk to him about it and say, "No, Chai, this isn't making any sense. What you're saying about these conspiracies or about you being on television or them talking about you on television." I think it was kind of a moment of, I think he's finally lost it, and I don't know if he's ever going to get it back.
and walk into your place and everything was like total chaos and nothing was in order. No, I couldn't sleep, couldn't rest, you know, just not knowing what was going on. Not going to band practice, not calling anyone back, unplugging the phone, fucking bizarre fucking behavior. I would just fucking be pacing, walking, fucking freaking out. And I couldn't sleep. I would just fucking stay up and then I'd just like pass out in the corner of my place. Wake up on the carpet. And it'd continue again.
But after that, you know, he wasn't ever really the same. And I think that's when he started getting maybe deeper into drugs.
It was kind of hard to tell. There ain't no fun in killing folk, and I ain't gonna do no more. Well, I never did heal upright from injuries sustained. Officially in Germany, officially while we trained. I remember all their faces.
Well, the contract was, if your first 3 records do well, we'll sign you to a 4th. But we didn't make the grade, you know, and so they didn't sign us to a 4th.
And I didn't find out till later that they didn't sell as well as the Epitaph bands that got really big, like Offspring and Rancid. Clearly Epitaph signed them knowing Shy's charisma and the quality of the music and how good everybody in the band was. And, you know, I'm kind of surprised that they weren't able to quite ride that wave, although some of the other ones that Epitaph signed, like RKL, never quite got that big either. And it just goes to show it's almost a fluke and a matter of luck, because none of the Epitaph bands that got super huge had a really charismatic lead singer like Shy. None of them did.
It's got to be deflating if you gave it your best shot, you think you're going to make it on Epitaph, and you write what you think is like a really great album, and nobody cares.
I consider them to have done pretty well, coming from that era where, you know, where selling 5,000 records was considered successful.
What I didn't realize is the contract was like a student loan, and I didn't understand the vocabulary. Like when they said, hey, when you guys come down to LA, we'll put you up in a really nice hotel, but we're paying for it. It's all on the tab, it's all on the bill, right? And I could have fucking stayed at a fucking Motel 666 for fucking $29 or something, right? And we didn't realize that, so we'd order the fucking most expensive shit on the menu. And it's all on the fucking bill, including the tip. After 3 records, I couldn't believe it. It's like, punch me in the balls harder if you fucking can. $250,000 after 3 records. I've never seen that much money in my fucking life, but that was our debt. We just fucking made it. We sold 70,000 copies of each record. So that paid back the debt. But it was great. It was a great experience to work with them and you know, have that promotion and that kind of reputation, right?
As far as like marketability of their music and stuff, I mean, I think they got pretty much as big as they could get for doing that. You know, it's not like they were ever writing radio songs or anything like that. They're punk band. So, I mean, as far as like a true punk band goes, I think they pretty much got as far as you can get. They did it, you know.
Their last hurrah was at the convention center in Edmonton. First time Bad Religion had ever played there, and there was 3,500 people. And we were the middle band, and fuck, you wouldn't believe. Like, when I put the mic out, and fucking everybody was proud of us, because we're fucking hometown boys, right? There's people from Calgary, Lethbridge, Red Deer, Saskatchewan, you know, everywhere. And they knew all the fucking words, and the fucking callback was someone singing. And yeah, so that was a really, you know, monumental moment. He moved to Toronto with his girlfriend, and I started a band called Slaveco, and the three guys used to play with him in another band before that.
Yeah, one thing I'll hand it to Chai on, man, is like, dude's obviously very creative, and he's intelligent enough to always surround himself with talented people as well.
Same singer as SNFU, but the music was different, which in turn made Chai's approach vocally, like, it was a lot more guttural and sort of experimental.
We ended up playing a lot of all ages shows to people who didn't even really know SNFU, so they're like, who the fuck is this guy? And, you know, it just, you know, shocked a lot of people, I think. It was fun. The musical style was different you know, on many levels, but it was similar in the sense of what it was to Chai. And it was just sort of a platform for him to do his thing.
I remember we were about to go on stage and our poor singer was a little fucked up. And yeah, there was a spillage of contraband everywhere backstage and scrambling. And he got on stage and then he walked off in the middle of the set and sat down at a table in the audience while we kept playing and you know, looping the section, waiting for him to come back on stage. And the show was pretty much a disaster. But I look back at it now with, you know, fond, warm memories. But that was one of the worst show experiences, I'd have to say.
There were a couple of songs that were, you know, with it done in a tongue-in-cheek way, were, you know, were pretty, you know, pretty serious. One was about addiction, and it was obviously, you know, he was writing about his own issues.
He started like pushing to get the last SNFU record made, and I'm like, you know what, I'm totally happy with these guys in this band, and I don't care if I ever do another fucking SNFU record, you know? And that turned out to be in the meantime and in between time. And I'm thankful that happened, but it took like 5 years, and it was really stressful and emotional, and but it turned out to be a really good record.
In the meantime, in between time was a really interesting album.
That was
like
a great album.
Yeah, lyrically, like it seemed the most like he was really kind of speaking from the heart.
The writing for the last record, to me, is just incredibly autobiographical for the time, like in what he was going through and where he was at in life. And yeah, because it's really sad. If you look at the lyrics and what he's saying, the guy is like, he's totally down and out and desperate. A song like Cock's Two Quill was, that to me, that just kind of sums it up, where he was at the time. And there's another song on that record called Sickly and Cowardly that's kind of the same thing. It's definitely a pretty clear indication of where he was in life at the time and how he was feeling.
Just talking about selling off all the shit I've collected over the years just to survive, and the only thing I had left was the quill, which I hadn't sold yet, because I'd probably end up selling that just to fucking keep on going. I would just live hand them out day to day.
Just like Mark talking about like him showing up to go on tour with like all of his possessions, and it was like a little box with like a videotape and like some shit, you know, and he was just like, oh my God, like, what's happening, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like, what do you do when your friend is just like completely like fucking up and there's nothing you can do about it, you know? Like, I think that must have been like pretty hard on the members of the band too, you know?
There'd be times where, you know, certain members would be up partying all night. And there was one night where we pulled into High River and opened up the back of the van, of SNFU's van, and Chai had been sleeping amongst the gear in the back of the van, and he had a towel over his face, and he was sort of in the position like a dead dog. And Mark's looking at him, and he goes, "Do you think he's alive?" Started poking at him. Come on.
The socializing patterns change because you don't say, "Hey, good morning, how's it going?" every day, and you don't go out to eat dinner every day together, and people looking in think it's kind of weird. So it's hard to judge that. I mean, they seem, like I say, like a normal, heavily toured band.
They'd all be talking. I'd play certain games with myself and say, I'm not gonna talk for an hour. I'm saying a fucking word. I'd have earplugs in, I'd tune out, maybe listen to some music.
The relationship was just kind of falling apart. I think the touring was, it was amazing and it was terrible. The shows were by far the best and the most fun shows I've ever played in any band I've ever played with. It's so far and above, just so much fun. And just, you know, dedicated fans and stuff. And then at the same time, the travel and just the relationships and the tension between certain people in the band was just such a downer that it just led to the, you know, people just not wanting to do it anymore. And that sort of got between any bond that Chai and I had, I think, because I wasn't really enjoying traveling with him so much at that point. So, and then when it sort of ended, it didn't end well. We were literally at each other's throats right before we went on.
You know, that's hard for a band to do, to have such different personalities and to stay cohesive. That's really difficult.
And then I think they got a little bit more divided as some members changed and things changed. I think that Mark and Ken probably stayed closer until eventually Mark just, you know, felt like he can't help someone that won't help themselves, and went on to do what he had to do to get on with his life.
Before it was divided, there was like 2 against 2. There was like Shane and I, who were like the partiers, the irresponsible ones, the ones who didn't give a shit about anything. But if we didn't give a shit, we wouldn't have been there. And I wouldn't have fucking, you know, gave it my all every night, night after night after night. But Mark and Matt kind of bonded.
Mark basically decided he wasn't going to play anymore. That was essentially breaking up the band.
Their last show that they were gonna ever play was in Reds in Edmonton. I know backstage, Chai was totally bummed that it was the last show. He was like, "This is bullshit. You know, I want to keep doing this. You know, for Market to kind of run its course at that time." And since he was doing all the grunt work for it, that's just why it kind of stopped. Because he was like, "Why not stop?" And
I think it stopped being worth it for him. Because he did a lot of the business side of stuff. I think Matt Workers helped too, but it was just a lot of work to do for really not much return.
I couldn't even begin to speculate on what it would be like to be locked up in a van with Chai for however long.
20 years?
20 years. You know, as far as the Belkies go, they, you know, got different priorities these days. And hanging out with someone that irritates you probably isn't one of them, you know. Even though the body of music is terrific.
And is there still animosity between you two?
Oh, fuck, yeah. Yeah. I haven't spoken to Mark in like a year and a half, 2 years.
When a band member leaves, it's kind of like a divorce. Like, even if you're friends with them, it still always kind of like hurts a little bit.
whatever his and Chai's indifferences musically where they couldn't work together, and more whatever Mark chose to do. Like, so in that, you know, the one staple thing that Chai's had in his life for the last two and a half decades was kind of gone. You know, it's like, you know how they say like old people when they're together their whole lives, and you know they get really old, and then one passes away, and then the other one isn't usually far behind because their whole part of their being is gone. The other members in the band, they always maybe had a backup, a relationship, stuff like that. Chai never had anything but the band. You know, whether it would be his choice or not, it's still the way it was.
You know, I think that was a pretty traumatizing moment for Chai, and I think that pushed him over the edge and actually created a few, you know, serious issues with Chai in how he felt about himself and life and just in general. And
a traumatic event happens in their life, a death, a breakup, a loss. Sure, that could cause a mood swing quite easily. Bearing in mind that these are people whose control, like internal normal levels of control over mood functioning, is impaired to begin with, right?
And I think that, you know, he had lost a lot of the focus of what he was doing when SNFU was no more, you know?
You know, I always think of the chorus to Rusty Rake. Time was kind of like, you know, don't let me complain because I have all this stuff. Well, at the time that I knew him, he was losing all that and then lost it. So, I mean, it was really, really a dark time for him. I can only imagine.
Right after that tour, we were still in contact with him a lot. He was staying over at Byron's here and there and sleeping in our van and stuff. That was right after.
That was right after the tour. So they came home, and I guess he didn't have anywhere to stay. So we could help him out when we could. If he didn't have somewhere to stay, he'd crash in the van or stay over or whatever.
I mean, given obviously the mental illness and given drug use and that kind of thing, it's pretty easy to find yourself down here on the streets, you know, because everything's just gone straight down the toilet.
I was being a bit reckless when I thought there was some the Jack Kerouac in me. Thought it'd be cool to be a fucking vagabond and not pay rent. And I was self-medicating because of the physical pain and condition of my teeth. And so that was the acetaminophen tablets and with a little bit of cough syrup.
I'd walk around and I'd listen to I'd do some cough syrup and acetaminophen tablets and trip around. I'd walk a lot and listen to my fucking Walkman and listen to music.
I stayed with Dennis and Chad. Stayed at their house, and then Chad had a van at the time. It was parked in his backyard, and I stayed in that van for about a month and a half until it got too cold.
Like I said, you know, living in a van in the back of mine and Chad's backyard, so he was living in Chad's van.
That was the low point, and the drugs are mainly there to block out the fact that you just lost your place to live and you lost all your fucking possessions and belongings. But it was also part of like freeing yourself from the material world. Like I told you before, the one thing I regret the most about that was losing the little keepsakes that you fucking collected, and you know, all the drawings you've done all your life, and all the fucking books of writing you did all your life, and all the shit you created, and you have no reference of it, you know?
It's just weird. I mean, somebody you knew and used to be friends with, and now they're just that guy on the street. And there's nothing you can do. Nothing. You kind of feel helpless, but there's nothing you can do. There's no way you're going to see it happening or that you can intervene, because people can't be changed. They got to change themselves, unfortunately.
And so I was not a normal person. I was in a different state back then, and then that kind of triggered other recreational pursuits. And somebody I knew was doing a lot of coke at the time, we'd go and do that and just have fun, which was fun for a while. But then when it's fun like that, the fun stops being fun after a while because it's just like, it starts tearing at you. You know, you spent all your fucking money on fucking dope, your fucking paranoid, you're fucking, you know, it's a very weird kind of state of mind to be in because you think it's fun, but it really isn't fun. But at least you're not miserable, but you're miserable in a different way. It's really hard to explain. You know, first you snorted a bit, and then you know, that was kind of glamorous and romantic. And then you did like a Cocoa Puff. You put the Coke on the fucking cigarette. You get a different kind of high. Then you make little joints with cocaine and tobacco in them. Tastes like licorice. And then the next step was, oh, I have a pipe here. Try this. And then you get that blast.
Oh, the last time I saw Chai was, about 2 years ago. I was walking down the street to go to a club in downtown Vancouver. And then he was going around from bar to bar, showing off his crazy, squiggly, demented artwork. Says, I'm going bar to bar and trying to sell this stuff. Then he tried to sell me a piece, and I was kind of like, I gotta go. That was the last time I saw him. And he became skinnier and, like the last time I saw him a couple years ago, they looked very thin and pretty unhealthy. So I was worried about him for sure.
You knew, like, when Chai would come around and if he would sort of show up unannounced and kind of hang around for a while, you knew, like, you know he was sort of, he kind of needed something or was hoping that something would be offered. And I'm sure he didn't feel good about asking, and why would he? I mean, we've all had to ask for help, and it never really feels very good.
It's not help as in, it's help like I need some money to get some shit, right? Which I just don't go for that, right? So, you know, some people just don't even bother. Some people kind of come through trying to do their shimmy she wobble, you know, the old cheeseburger Thursday thing. And I just got to tell them, look, dude, I feel for you, man, but I can't do that. I can't help you. So Chai was pretty respectful, though. I think to this day, I don't even know what his shit was that he was fucking with, and to me, it's not important. I don't need to know. But I know there was something on his ass, right?
Broke down for a friend, said, need help. She let me stay at her house, and she happened to work for the government agencies and helping people that were homeless. And she got me onto a bunch of programs and got me an advocate, and then I got back on social support, and then ended up going to see some doctors and psychiatrists and shit like that.
Could you imagine? Because all of a sudden, you know, your band, your life falls apart. All of a sudden, you're homeless. All of a sudden, everything that makes you you is gone. Like down to school book pictures of you. Like, that would really kind of set somebody off.
It hurt for a long time. It hurt for a couple of years, and you know, the drugs blocked out that pain. But hey, the past is past. Still here right now. I don't need piles of paper to prove it.
So I could see where he became a bit of a social phobe, recluse, grew the big scraggly beard, and you know, he had the Jethro Bodine belt in his pants and everything, you know, and because he didn't care, because everything that he was important to him was taken away.
You know, one of the reasons why, you know, I'm growing my hair up and I'm growing this weird beard, and I hope I don't look like Chai Pig anymore. But people still recognize me. It's like, fuck, I'm just trying to disappear here. Gone through a really heavy self-loathing period. And not feeling good about myself and not taking care of myself. Escaping, you know. They have a hoop or something.
knock yourself out of that, and then you're locked up in that world. You feel shitty. I'd go to bed at nights a lot of times and just fucking wish that I never woke up. I didn't want to live this life anymore. I started walking. I live like about 4 blocks from the fucking train tracks, and trains are weird with me. And I said, yeah, I'm just gonna walk over there and fucking throw myself under a train, right? And I actually started walking there. And then I kind of like calmed down a little bit, and I saw a cop. And I said, look, I'm in a fucking really bad position here right now. I feel like fucking really hurting myself. He says, how? I said, well, what do you want to do? We can put you in the police station until you calm down, or we can call an emergency ambulance right now and take you to the hospital. I said, ambulance. So they took me to the hospital till I calmed down. They made me wait about 4 hours. They gave me a meal, 2 Tylenol 3s and an Ativan. Yes, you're better now, you're calmed down. Yeah, this is cool. I'm like killing myself now. About a month after that, I got on the meds. I was very reluctant to get on the medication, but I thought, you know, I was self-medicating anyways, and what's the difference? Self-medication or legal medication, they're pretty much the same to me, because I've tried both. But legal medication, you can get it paid for by the government, right? But I'm not, I'd say that's, either way is not the best way to go. And the legal thing scared me because, you know, well, let's try this. It doesn't work, we'll try something else. So you're a guinea pig. Try a guinea pig. I came back, they said, how was it? I said, threw them away. Freaked. Didn't want to do it.
People can have revelations at almost any age, but certainly there's got to be some point where they say, yeah, I get it. There's some part of my life that's out of control. I need to change that. I maybe need help.
He looked him over and thought he'd get along with people and brought him into our program here. And he's just been making use of it and really enjoying it. We're here to support people and getting back on their feet and starting to enjoy their lives again and to build their health up.
I don't really live here. I just sleep here. Yeah. Because I try to get out of the building as much as possible. But sometimes I stay in here for my own safety. And I gotta be around people. When I'm by myself, I'm not that strong yet. Yeah. Stuff I like about the residents, they care for you and, you know, they say encouraging things, but still, you're around fucking people that are equally as fucked up as you are, if not more. And everyone's whacked out on meds. It's like big babies who haven't fucking decided they're gonna grow up yet. You know, they feed you, they fucking clean your room, they do your laundry. You're allowed, if you're hungry, you can grab like a can of something and make your own meal. I don't like the vibe. It feels like almost like entrapment. You know, like my room's not decorated because it's not home to me, right? So it's like living in a sanitarium of some kind. I like to get out of here and be on my own, more self-supportive. I think that's more rewarding.
You know, a guy like Ken, you know, is a perfect example of what can happen when, you know, a person finds a safe place to hang their hat. They can get on with other issues. They can get on with taking care of themselves. They can get on with following their muse and being creative and rocking out, you know, and that's, you know, personally that makes me feel good.
If you want to see the intense, divey bathroom to make you shudder with fright, you know, this is the place to go. And actually, it's had a facelift. It's not so bad in there these days, you know. I mean, that it survived from being like an absolutely terrifying strip bar to this sort of place where music like that happens. I mean, it's a cool venue.
Thank God for those people, because they're helping him. Because I couldn't get to him. You know, I'm in Edmonton, he's in Vancouver, and I'm glad they're helping them.
He was just hanging out. And like, you know, puttering around, working the crowd. It's one of the few bars that wouldn't kick him out. Because, you know, he does have this certain, like, homeless look to him right now.
He's with people, and I know that just that social interaction, as antisocial as he seems at the time, I'm sure is a good thing for him.
He's like my spoiled brat employee. Kind of just does what he wants, shows up when he wants. I think it's great because it keeps him in the music scene and really closely involved. He's a pretty humble dude. Gets along with a lot of people. He used to sit there and draw, like make extra money just selling his drawings at the bar.
I mean, if I saw him at the Cobalt, I'd definitely get him to do a picture of me. I mean, it's Ken Chin. He's an amazing artist.
And just having something to do, having somewhere to be, having responsibilities, like all those things are definitely steps in the right direction from at, you know, certain points that I saw him at, which there was none of that, and it was bad, really bad.
I put that fucking offer on the plate to begin with, and only one person walked through the door, and that was John Card, right? Because John Card just wants to play, and he's a fucking brilliant drummer, and everyone else was like, no answer, didn't want to have anything to do with it. And you know what? It was like a 3-year break, like from 2005 to 2008, and it was like, I'm celebrating the fucking 25th anniversary with or without you, and I technically own 51% of the publishing, and the other percentage is split by the other 4, so it's like 12.5% for each guy. So I can do whatever the fuck I want, right? If they don't want to be in, actions speak louder than words. If you fucking wanted to be there, you'd be there, right? And they weren't there, you know? I offered them the fucking opportunity. The door was open, they never stepped in.
You don't, like, if you have been a part of something that was really great, you don't want it anything less than really great to be representing it. But, you know, like I said, it's like being asked to be remarried to your ex-wife. Do you want to do that? No.
I can do it without him, but he can't do it without me. And I think he's always been envious of that. Yeah. It's not SNFU if there's no pig.
I think there was a shock and there was some shit to do with a show at the Cobalt or something, and then eventually Mark just realized, like, what the fuck am I doing? But it's hard, you know, because it's something that you've done for 20 years. And, like, if they're going to go out and use that name and all the hard work he's done, he wants it to be done as best as possible. And I think with him not being in it, I think it's probably fucked him up. But I think that his need to move on with his life probably conquered those feelings, I would imagine.
If you want to tell the Belky brothers that they weren't part of the legacy of their band, or...
I think that's a totally dishonest idea, and I don't think he should do it. I think that's as bogus as Dead Kennedys playing without me. That's wrong.
SNFU with all these new players in the band. I don't know. My experience in watching other bands that have tried to do that type of thing is it usually falls pretty short. But who's to say? There's always a first time for everything.
Of course, they had a very dedicated, hardcore fan base. So it will really depend on whether, people from the old days will come out to see them, how much they've, how many younger people have been influenced by their music and are interested to see them, But it's tough out there, It's tough out there. If you disappear and come back, it's even tougher.
You're gonna make me want to drink a lot.
I mean, energy, I don't think can be recreated, period. It's sort of like a question of focus, I think. I don't know, that's, time will tell.
I think the thing is, as long as the music's accurately reproduced and played well, and there's energy there, then people are going to go, okay, that's a great song. The lead guy is there. That works.
And there's certain bands that have that undeniable presence that really, their essence becomes the band.
It's hard now with him having SNFU without Mark. It's like at a certain point it kind of bums me out, but at the same time, Mark's moved on, he's doing his radio stuff, and that's Ken's life, and that's what he needs to do. Then I guess, you got to give it to him.
I think he belongs on stage much more than walking the streets.
I think he still puts on a really good show.
Hell of a good show.
Really, yeah, he's a solid entertainer.
Yeah.
That's what he does, I guess.
I think Chai as an individual has a shitload of creativity left in him. I mean, I think he'll just create well as long as he's alive. And if he sees SNFU as a viable channel to get that out through, yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. I don't see why it wouldn't.
No one else can tell me how to do that, because I've done that. I've been doing that for almost 30 years now. And it's my realm. That's my fucking circle, right? That's my ring.
It's not dead till I die, brother. It's over, that saying, when pigs fly, when pigs die. You know what? I never quit. People quit on me. I never say never, bro. I've never quit this band. This is my favorite band in the world.
Before we do that, I'd like to thank all of you for being here this evening. You made me feel human again, and that doesn't last very long.
He's always at his best as a person when he's doing something, when he's engaged creatively. And so on that level, at the very least, then a band going around under the SNFU name with him singing for him is a great thing.
What it really comes down to is, in my mind, is you have a front man who's the image for the band, and you have the musician who wrote, 90% of the material of the music. And so it's, they both own the same right to say whatever they want to say about it, but the fact remains that, it is what it is. And Chai can do whatever he wants. Mark could go start a band and call it SNFU, I suppose, if he wanted to. I don't know, I think it's as soon as it comes down to that, music's music, it doesn't matter, call it whatever. Play SNFU songs, do a new record, who cares? I'll still come to see it.
First one, when he came back, he was pretty stoked. And it was pretty well attended. It was just exciting to see him on the stage again. The fire in his eyes,
Drink before a show, but today I have to because this is so fucked up. We love you. Always thank you all for being here. And me especially.
The first reunion show at the Cobalt, when they had probably 550 people packed in there, I had a bruise across my gut for from the edge of the stage, just from all the pressure. There's a straight line bruise right across my stomach for 2 weeks after that. It's pretty funny. That was a pretty epic show.
Yeah, to give you a good idea how packed that show was too. People were getting crowd surfed from the stage right out the door because there was nowhere to put them down except for outside.
I was really surprised at how good it sounded to me, and how enthusiastically the fans received it. I mean, they knew all the words, the sound was there, the energy was there. That's the main thing.
I
guess it's like when that's what you've done for your whole life, and maybe you don't want to do anything else, you know, or maybe you can't.
When you see him, this guy, he looks kind of like, you know, well, he looks like a street person. He looks like a crackhead from the street. And you know, he's picking up bottles, you know, at the Cobalt and shit. And then he gets on the stage, and he has everybody in the whole place eating out of his hand, you know, and it's just like, wow, that's awesome, you know.
Before we started playing, or the band started playing again, you know, like, he was in a bad space, and now he's, you know, he's being reliable. He's as reliable as Chai Pig can be. You know, he's on point. He actually shows up for practices on time. He's enthusiastic. He doesn't come so loaded, you know what I mean? Like, it's getting better and better.
One of the reasons why I did it is because I saw an instant jump in his self-esteem and how he felt about himself and how he felt about other people. And that's the main reason why I wanted to do it. Be totally honest with you, I saw a huge positive mental change with him.
I guess it's his showcase. You know, it's without it, I don't know what he would do.
I heard from people, like, you know, they weren't too stoked on Chai because, oh, he was fucking hammered and he was messing up the lyrics and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, you don't even know what this guy has gone through over the last 6 years.
On that tour, he was still having more problems with drugs. He was still probably getting adjusted to his medication, speaking of drugs. Also, just getting back into shape after having not done it for a while.
It was a 6-day trip, and we did 4 gigs, and I did no hard drugs and that whole 6 days, which is a bit of a record for me right now. But I had my meds with me, and I was drinking and smoking cigarettes, but that's it.
The only way to get him off of that shit is by keeping him on stage, right? Keep him in his happy place in another way. And I'm just stoked that that's what these guys want to do, right? Because I think the world needs Chai Pig.
That's why I like being on the road, is I'm focused and I'm around friends, and I'm not in solitude. When I get alone and laying there, I get kind of bored and kind of antsy, and it's like, fuck it. What's one more?
On tour, he's away from that, so his mind's getting clearer, right? Not so foggy. Like, that's when he started telling us all these stories and stuff about, like, oh, and then one time here, because it was all coming back, right? Like, life on the road. I'm here again. This is where I want to be. I'm excited.
I can't hear you. One more time. Isn't that you? 2008, bitch. I'd like to thank Mark and Brent Belkey for the wonderful music they shared with us over the years. Thank you as well. And they can come down with me anytime they want. I got no hard feelings. I'm going to do this till I fucking croak. So. Thanks for giving us a second chance. Thanks a lot, everyone.
So when I'm on the road here, my band guys are not only my friend and surrogate family, but they protect me, right? So I'd rather be doing this than doing that. I'm away from that zone. I'm in a different zone. My focus is different. You're moving forward, right?
He was drinking a lot less. He was off his meds, which was, you know, when he first said it, part of me was like, uh-oh, how's this gonna work out? Because I've seen people who have mental illness and they decide they're going off their meds. But you know what? Sometimes you do know what's right for you. You know, doctors don't know everything. He came through really well. he, you know, because it would dry his mouth out. A lot of medications do that, you know, dry your mouth out, and that's certainly not going to help him. And tire you out too, you know, you're going to get fatigued. And you just feel kind of, when you take a lot of meds, you don't really have any highs or lows, right? If you're getting mood stabilizers and you're sedated, right? You're not, and you don't want a sedated shy pig on stage, right? You know, it's...
Put it this way, the world that we live in is surreal to him. It's foreign. So for him to be playing music, to be in a van, getting, you know, no sleep, city, that's real to him. He's conditioned for that. So it's kind of like, when we're in the van, he's much more calm, he's more peaceful, he has purpose. You know what I mean? The next gig is his purpose. So he's got focus, he's got a job, he has something to do.
And you know, you know what you're gonna be doing that day. You're fucking working, you're playing, blowing off some steam.
Felt like this is it. We're done. The pig prevails. He prevailed, and I prevailed, and very grateful to be sitting here today.
How you feeling, Mr. Pig?
Pretty good.
How good? Scale of 1 to 10.
Like $1,000,000 pesos. What's that? Fucking 12 months.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like $1,000,000 pesos. I wouldn't be here anymore. Probably be gone. And this is the thing that keeps me alive and makes life worthwhile. I'm on the right track, and I'm with really positive, supportive people. Yeah, and so that makes you want to be a better you. And my attitude has changed a lot. Like, less self-destruction and more creation, you know? Because I still think I got some in me.